Well, turning now to new data released by Statistics Canada, indicating that Canadian travel to the U.S. continues to decline.
This is now the 15th consecutive month where Canadians returning from trips or even going to the United States for trips is down. Clearly, this is an indication of now more than a year of a trend of Canadians opting to travel elsewhere than the United States, because of course, Renee, the data is also showing us that Canadians are increasingly going to other countries. It's just not that Canadians aren't traveling as much. They're actively choosing not to go south of the border.
Canada is quietly making a choice that is changing everything. More Canadians are keeping their vacation money closer to home or spending it somewhere else, and this is turning into a big win for Canada. But while Canada grows stronger, many tourism businesses across the US are feeling the pain, and the worst may still be ahead for the US. Canadians spent approximately $3.3 billion less on travel to the United States over the past year. In 2026 alone, Canadian residents returned from about 2.6 million trips to the US, a 6.4% decline compared to the same month a year earlier. That marks the 15th consecutive month of declining Canadian travel south of the border. This is no longer a temporary slowdown. Statistics Canada's data confirms a durable, long-term shift in where Canadians are choosing to spend their vacation money, and American tourism businesses are absorbing the loss. The scale of the financial impact is documented in Statistics Canada's own figures. The $3.3 billion reduction in Canadian spending on US travel over the past year represents a direct revenue loss to American hotels, restaurants, retailers, and attractions that have historically depended on Canadian visitors. Canada has consistently been one of the largest sources of international tourism to the United States. When Canadian travel volume contracts by billions of dollars, the businesses in border states and traditional vacation destinations that built their capacity around Canadian visitor spending face measurable revenue declines that flow directly to their bottom lines. The 15th consecutive month of decline is the statistic that transforms this from a fluctuation into a structural trend. New reports explain that Canadian residents returned from 2.6 million trips to the US in March, marking a 6.4% year-over-year contraction, the 15th straight month of decline. A single month of reduced travel can reflect weather, exchange rates, or seasonal factors. 15 consecutive months of decline reflects a sustained behavioral change. Canadian travelers have altered their vacation patterns in a way that has persisted across more than a full year through every season and every category of travel. The most important detail in the Statistics Canada data is what it reveals about where Canadians are going instead. Canadians are not cutting back on travel altogether. They are choosing different destinations. Statistics Canada data indicates that travel overseas and to other international locations is increasing at the same time US-bound travel is declining. That divergence is the proof point. If Canadians were simply traveling less due to economic constraints, all international travel categories would decline together. And if you want the real story behind how Canada is still holding its ground through tariffs, wars, and hard times, hit join below to join the membership for exclusive documentaries you won't see anywhere else about Canada's progress and rise through uncertainty. Instead, overseas travel is growing, while US travel falls, meaning Canadian travelers are actively redirecting their vacation budgets away from the United States toward other destinations. That redirection is where the American loss becomes a competitor's gain. Every Canadian family that chooses Mexico, the Caribbean, Europe, or a domestic Canadian destination over Florida, New York, or California is spending vacation money that previously flowed into the American economy somewhere else. The $3.3 billion reduction in US-bound spending does not represent money Canadians stop spending. It represents money Canadians are now spending in other markets, a transfer of tourism revenue from American businesses to their international competitors. The causes of the shift are documented and consistent across the reporting. Industry experts attribute the decline to a combination of political tensions, ongoing Canada-US trade disputes, and a strengthening by stay Canadian mindset that has influenced travel decisions over the past year. The trade conflict that began in February 2025 with the initial round of American tariffs coincides precisely with the beginning of the sustained travel decline. Provocative rhetorical statements from US leadership, including repeated references to Canada as a potential 51st state, and the wildfire smoke tariff threats have reinforced consumer sentiment against American travel among Canadians, who view their vacation spending as an economic choice with political dimensions. The buy local, stay local, shop Canadian sentiment that emerged during the trade conflict extends the alcohol boycott and product substitution behavior into the travel sector. The same consumer psychology that produced a 78% decline in US wine exports to Canada and a 58% increase in Ontario VQA wine sales is now operating in tourism. Canadian consumers are treating their discretionary spending on alcohol, on products, and now on vacations as a form of economic response to the trade conflict. The travel decline is the tourism expression of a broader consumer movement that has been reshaping Canadian purchasing patterns across multiple categories since early 2025. The airline industry data confirms the tourism decline from the supply side. Air Canada announced it is cutting more than 3,400 scheduled flights to the United States across 2026, halting or delaying 8 transborder routes and pushing Florida seasonal routes from October to December. WestJet stated it saw a notable decline in transborder travel demand throughout 2025 and sees no indication the trend will reverse. Air Transat canceled its entire US route network. When 3 major Canadian carriers simultaneously reduce US capacity, delay route restarts, and in one case exit the American market entirely, they are responding to exactly the demand collapse that the Statistics Canada arrival data documents. The research on the magnitude of the decline suggests it may be even larger than the headline figures indicate. Reported that researchers examining the data concluded the Canadian travel decline to the US is more significant than initially understood, that the standard arrival statistics may understate the full scope of the behavioral shift. When accounting for trip cancellations, shortened stays, and travelers who redirected to other destinations before the trend was fully measured. The 6.4% March decline and the 15-month streak represent the documented floor of a trend that some analysts believe runs deeper than the official arrival counts. Capture. The American businesses most exposed to the decline are concentrated in specific regions. Border states: New York, Michigan, Minnesota, Vermont, Maine. Washington and traditional Canadian vacation destinations like Florida and Arizona built tourism capacity around predictable Canadian visitor flows. Florida's winter economy in particular has historically depended on Canadian snowbirds who spend months in the state. The delay of Air Canada's Florida routes from October to December, combined with the broader travel decline, directly affects the shoulder season revenue that Florida tourism businesses count on before the peak winter period. The political context ensures the trend is likely to continue, with CUSMA trade renegotiations unresolved and the 50% tariff scheduled to take effect August 19th. The political friction driving the travel shift shows no sign of easing. Experts expect the political dynamics to keep Canadian tourism directed elsewhere as trade negotiations intensify through the summer. A trend that has already lasted 15 months, driven by a trade conflict that has escalated rather than resolved, has no clear catalyst for reversal on the horizon. The tourism decline operates as one front in the broader economic realignment the trade conflict has produced. Canadian consumers redirecting vacation spending, Canadian provinces removing American alcohol, Canadian airlines cutting US routes,